welcome to Infinite Games. We have respawned into city Skylines, and today we'll continue building the city of Paradise Hills. So in the last episode, we built the road that created access to the city, well, the town, and we also created a small area where the first people of the town would be coming in. So I hope you enjoyed the last episode, and I wanted to change lanes a little bit for this one. And rather than talking about what I'm doing, I wanted to talk about the approach behind today's episode. So as you can see, I'm just continuing to expand the area that I had started with in the previous episode, but the thought process behind this one is a little different. And from the title of the video, you can tell that this episode is based around planning and expansion of the city in an organic way. Now, as I said in the previous episode, and I'll just reiterate this, that I'm not going for a hyper realistic build. Like, I'm not trying to recreate a city. I'm not trying to make Paradise Hills look like a certain city, or even, I don't want it to embody anything that is too close to reality. Not because I don't think that that's possible, or not because I don't want to do that, but my main goal, like I had mentioned, was to make this city the way I wanted it to, and I wanted it to feel organic for myself in the process of building. So yeah, let's talk about what makes a city grow and how a city grows. Now, normally you would think, and it makes sense unless you look too deep into it, that the cities would start from the downtown areas and then it would grow out in all possible directions. But usually, and most cities grow that way, that the way the cities mostly grow is from a neighborhood or a settlement. Now, the settlement can start from any place, and it's usually based off of resources, or it's based off of the proximity to some form of transportation, or it could be just because the area is good. For example, this city, in my approach, it's starting to build it's starting to evolve next to a riverbank, which makes sense because riverbanks are fertile, riverbanks are beautiful, and it is really close to a major highway, so it makes sense that people would want to settle down there. And obviously also depends on when your city sort of starts. Like you can come up with an idea of what is the era that you're going for, and obviously we are dealing with modern buildings, modern avenues, all of the modern technology. So it's not like we are trying to build something that we are not trying to build anything that was in the 18th or 19th century. We are obviously in the 21st century and we are doing that, but you have to think back to how a city or how a town would have initially started and how that settlement would have grown, and then over the 10, 15, 20, 100, however many years it is now evolved into what it is. So that's my thought process behind this town as well, that it starts from the riverbanks and the valleys where you have resources, or where the proximity to transport is really close. That's where it'll start from. So at the moment, I'm just building out small neighborhoods, and they are like basically scattered around little fertile areas of the land. And so you have a small little farming community, and then people started coming and settling next to it. And let's just talk about the what I'm doing right now. So basically, I'm just trying to divide this area into a few districts, not to implement any specific district I'm not planning to do anything district specific here. Just the idea behind it is to sort of demarcate what I want each area to be. So as you can see, the leftmost was a farmland, and I'm gonna go and mark it as a farming specific industrial area, and I'm also going to go in and put down some of the fertile land resource. Yeah, as you can see, I'm doing that right now. So the idea is that you'll obviously start, you'll have humble beginnings. You'll start with a little farm, and that grows, and then people start settling next to it. So that's what has happened. So you have a farmland, and people then settle next to it, and then there's another farmland, and then people then settle next to that. And obviously, this in the second attempt, it's a lot more organized. It's a lot more planned out. So you have the grid pattern to go with. And following that, there's a area which, in my mind, is like a private farm or a private sort of an area. So it's built more fancily. It has slightly what you would consider not as accessible of a terrain. So a large community won't go there. Maybe someone with a lot of money bought it at some point, and then they converted it into a ranch or something like that, which is kind of exactly what I've gone for. I'm gonna go in and place a ranch, and that's gonna sit as a slightly isolated from the major community here, but it's still next to it. So maybe that's like a posh part of this little community here. And there's no real science to this. There's no way of making it perfect, but actually that's kind of one of the things that makes a city look good, makes a city look organic, is the fact that it's not perfect. Even the most planned cities will have small little flaws. It'll have the roads won't be exactly a rectangular grid. It'll have different branches that goes here and there, and that's what makes a city have its character. And it's also logical if you think about it, because let's say you settle down in an area and maybe you have, I don't know, 100 people, then it grows into 1,000, and then suddenly you think that, okay, now we need to plan how the next sort of part of the land is going to come up, and how people are going to settle, and where they're going to live. You think about all of that, and you take into consideration how many people have moved in the past, let's say 10 years, and you come up with a plan. But obviously cities grow, towns grow a lot faster or slower depending upon the area and all the conditions around it. So if you can consider a place that is really fertile or has really good road access, for example, our area here is really close to a main highway. That means getting access to this place is not at all difficult. So this area would grow much faster than you would initially expect it to. So all of those factors come in, and that sort of changes how much the planning actually can be put into action. So that's what happens. You plan out an area, you think about how you want to grow, and then boom, there's a huge explosion of people coming in, and the planning goes for a toss. Well, not entirely, but then yeah, it's not as planned as it initially you thought about it. So that's what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm not trying to make things well, I'm not making them imperfect knowingly. Like, I'm not trying to make them imperfect, but then I'm also not spending too much time trying to get a bend exactly 90 degrees, or a road exactly into a grid or something like that. So the whole process has to be organic. You have to think about where you feel like a community can come in, and that's where you place roads and everything. For this place, I put down a road, and when I put down this road just above it, it took the higher ground because of how the the terrain was not level and it was sloping up, which is great because that's how in a lot of hilly areas you'll see that roads are generally in tiered. So the cities and the towns in that area are tiered, and you have winding roads that go up the hill. Now I didn't make this exactly a winding road because it's not really that steep of a hill and roads can actually be built at that angle. But yeah, I mean, you can take inspiration from just the terrain, and maybe open up Google Earth. That's such a good a resource to have. Google Earth or Google Maps, open it, and based on where what kind of a map you've picked and what kind of an area it's based upon and what terrain is around you that you can play around with, just choose an area on the map that matches it to some extent, and then you can just take a look at it and get inspiration from there. That's what I did. I did talk about it a little bit in the previous episode as well, that I was actually surprised to see how planned even a relatively small town can be. So yeah, I think that's a good way of clearing some of the myths about big cities and how they came about and how they grew, and I think this is a great example for that. So I'll just continue to build this area, and right now I'm just trying to populate the farmland to make sure that there's enough space to actually put in industries that are specific to farming. And that's what I did. That's why I put in these zonable walkways, which are part of the network extensions 2 mod. And they're nice little gravelly roads that allow you to zone buildings around it. So obviously vehicles can't go in, but people can access them, and it works just like a normal avenue or a road. So that's another thing to consider while building your town, is where you want the main roads to be, where you want the avenues to be, and where you want the smaller cobbled paths, if you want to call it that, to be. So generally, again, it's really nice a way of actually learning about how cities grow if you look at the past of some of the cities. And normally that's how cities grow. And from what little research that I did, what I found out is that more or less a main road creates access to an area, and then it starts growing around it. So if you take a look at any city, you'll notice that a major avenue or a major road usually crosses the right in the center of the city, and it basically cuts it across, and then neighborhoods and communities start growing next to it. And once that reaches far enough away from the central point of the road, you start seeing secondary avenues come in, which again helps spread the city out further. So yeah, I'm gonna spend a little more time to just add some elements of beauty into the city, so that it looks more complete for the episode. Now obviously I'm gonna be I have a plan of doing a purely terraforming and landscaping based episode, and so I'll come into one of these settlements and then basically beautify it and add landscaping to it. For now I'm just gonna go in and plop down houses, commercial areas, industrial districts, and make it so that it looks like it's part of a town. I went ahead and put down a source of electricity. And I think the one that I put down is geothermal. I think it's geothermal. And then I obviously had to put down electrical pylons so that they can deliver power to the city. I'll follow that up with some water intakes as well as some sewage treatment plants, and then I can resume the simulation and our city would start getting populated. So this map has a nice little lake right at the top, very top, and that is a great place to sort of put in all of the water related water intakes and outputs. Just making sure that I maintain enough distance between the two so that the water doesn't mix and we don't get any water pollution. Because there's no flow of water, you just have to make sure that the radius of pollution from the sewage treatment plants is not big enough that they start seeping into the water intake pipes. And yeah, I guess I'll leave you to enjoy the final few minutes of the time lapse, and I'll be back. And our little town is growing. We have people coming in and settling down, and that's where I'll leave things today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. I wanted to do a few episodes where I basically talk about the thought process behind the city rather than talking about exactly what I'm doing. So let me know if you guys like these kinds of episodes so that I'll do more. If not, then I will revert back to commentating on what I'm doing. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. Oh, that's my cue to leave before I glitch out, I suppose. Thank you so much for joining. If you like the episode, hit that button down below. If you want to watch more, do subscribe and click the bell icon so you know when I upload the next one. And yeah, thanks again for joining. See you later.